Welcome back to our workshop, everyone. Today we're making a leather shoulder holster, also known as an anti-theft bag. This is one of my favorite projects because it blends practicality with style. You can use it for travel, for daily walks, or even as an adventurous accessory when you're out in nature. What's special about this design is the way it distributes weight across your shoulder, keeping your essentials close and secure without being bulky. It's sleek, comfortable, and handcrafted from start to finish. Now, to begin, we'll work with a handmade pattern that I've already prepared. Patterns are vital in Leathercraft. They ensure symmetry and consistency, and once you have one, you can reuse it for multiple builds. Lay your pattern over the leather hide, making sure the grain runs evenly and avoiding any weak spots or blemishes. Take your awl to lightly trace around the outlines. Then, using a sharp cutter and a sturdy ruler, follow the pattern with smooth, steady cuts. Don't rush this, and the key to clean leather work is precision, not speed. We're cutting 4 main pieces, 2 fronts and 2 back sides. Think of them as the foundation of our bag. As you cut, picture how these pieces will soon come together into something both functional and beautiful.
Beveling the main pieces. With our pieces cut, it's time to clean them up. The beveler tool will help us round off those sharp edges. Why bevel? Because sharp corners on leather can wear down, crack, or feel uncomfortable against the body. By trimming them, we add durability and comfort. Plus, it makes later steps like burnishing and stitching smoother. Set your piece down, hold your ruler across it for stability, and glide the beveler tool along the edge. You want a clean shaving motion, not a jagged scrape. Bevel each of the 4 main pieces, making sure your hands are steady. This might feel like a small detail, but in leatherwork, details build up to create that professional finish. Next, let's move on to crafting the pockets, the functional highlights of the front panels. Pockets not only add visual interest and texture to your holster, but also serve a practical purpose. They're all about accessibility, letting you reach smaller items, like tools, coins, or accessories, without having to open the entire holster body. Start by laying out your prepared pocket patterns on your chosen leather. Position them thoughtfully, keeping in mind the natural grain and any marks you want to feature or avoid. Once you're satisfied with placement, trace carefully around each pattern using a silver pen or scratch-awl, whichever gives you the clearest guide on your material. Next, take your precision cutter or utility knife and follow the outlines with slow, deliberate cuts. Keep your blade upright at a perfect 90-degree angle to the leather's surface. This ensures clean, professional-looking edges that align perfectly when assembled. Repeat the process for both front panels, making sure the mirrored sides match in shape and proportion. As you cut, consider the design balance of your pockets. The shape and depth you choose directly influence both the style and functionality of your holster. Deeper pockets add security, ideal for carrying heavier or more valuable items. Shallower pockets prioritize speed and easy access, perfect for small tools or quick grab essentials. For this particular build, we're aiming for practical yet stylish proportions, pockets that blend seamlessly into the front panels, keeping the overall silhouette slim, ergonomic, and wearable. They should feel like a natural extension of the holster rather than bulky add-ons. Once both pockets are cut, lay them side by side to ensure they're symmetrical. Check that the edges align and that the leather pieces have a consistent curve or angle, depending on your design. If any discrepancies appear, trim lightly with a sharp blade until both sides mirror each other perfectly. Once your pocket pieces are fully cut and shaped, it's time to refine their edges, a small step that makes a huge difference in both comfort and appearance. Begin by beveling the edges just as you did with the main body panels. Use your edge beveler to gently round off the sharp corners, removing that thin, crisp strip of leather along each edge. This not only enhances the professional finish, but also ensures the pockets will sit flush and smooth when stitched down later. With the edges beveled, move on to burnishing, the process that gives leather its signature sleekness and durability. Apply a light coat of gum tragacanth or clean water along the raw edges. Then, using your burnishing tool, whether it's a wooden slicker, canvas cloth, or even a piece of denim, rub firmly in steady, circular motions. You'll start to feel the leather warming slightly under the friction, and soon the fibers will begin to tighten, darken, and shine. This transformation is subtle but satisfying. The edge becomes smooth to the touch, visually refined, and far more resistant to fraying. Burnishing doesn't just make the pockets look good. It extends their lifespan, preventing the leather from absorbing excess moisture or separating with use. Remember, these pockets will face daily handling and friction, especially around the openings. Taking the time now to bevel and burnish every edge gives your holster a professional polish and ensures it holds up beautifully through years of wear. It's these finishing touches, the patience, the texture, the shine, that elevate your project from handmade to master-crafted. Now let's turn our attention to the backside panels, the foundation of the holster's hidden functionality. Here we'll be adding 2 concealed zipper compartments, perfect for storing essentials like passports, cash, cards, or small tools. These pockets give the holster a layer of security without adding visible bulk, keeping your valuables close yet out of sight. Start by measuring and marking the zipper placement on each backside piece. Using your ruler, draw a long, straight line across the leather, making sure it sits parallel to the top edge and aligns neatly with your design layout. This line will represent the center of your zipper opening. Adjust the position so it's accessible but discreet, ideally toward the upper or middle section of the panel. With your awl, mark the start and end points of the zipper opening. Then, lightly punch small guide holes at each end. These will make it easier to start and stop your cuts cleanly. Once the guides are in place, take your sharp utility knife or precision cutter and carefully cut along the line between the holes. Use smooth, controlled movements and keep your hands steady. This is where accuracy counts. A straight, even slit ensures that your zipper will sit flat and glide smoothly once installed. After cutting, test fit the zipper by sliding it into the opening. The teeth should fit snugly inside without warping the leather, and the fabric edges of the zipper should rest evenly against the inner side of the slit. If needed, make minor adjustments at the ends. Trim just enough to let the zipper align perfectly with the opening. This step transforms the backside panels from simple leather pieces into functional, concealed storage compartments. It's a subtle but powerful addition that elevates your holster from a stylish accessory into a versatile, everyday carry piece. Discreet, secure, and designed for real-world use. Now let's secure the zippers. First, apply a strip of double-sided textile adhesive tape along the inside edges of the slot. This tape holds the zipper in place temporarily, freeing your hands for stitching. Carefully position the zipper, making sure it's centered, and press it down with firm, even pressure. If the zipper extends past the slot, trim the excess with scissors. Then, take your hole puncher and create stitch holes along the line you marked earlier. With waxed thread, begin sewing the zipper in place using a saddle stitch. Pull each stitch snug, but not too tight to avoid puckering the leather. Work your way steadily down the line, then repeat the process on the second backside piece. When you're done, both back panels will have secure, hidden zipper pockets, adding both style and security to the holster. Now that your pockets are cut and prepped, let's return to them and move into the next stage of refinement and assembly, where the pockets truly start to take shape. Begin by burnishing the edges once more. This second round ensures every contour is smooth and sealed, especially after handling during previous steps. The goal here is to make the leather edges feel silky and resilient, giving them that professional, well-crafted finish before we move on to hardware. Next, let's create the pocket strap, the loop that anchors the closure system. Cut a small strip of leather wide enough to comfortably hold the strap, but not so wide that it overpowers the pocket front. Bevel and burnish its edges just as you've done before to keep consistency in finish and feel. Once the piece is prepped, punch 2 rivet holes, one on each end, where it will be attached to the pocket front. Adjust the length to match your pocket's proportions and the desired resting angle of the strap. This is where precision meets aesthetics. With the loop complete, we'll add the mushroom closure, a classic, durable fastening that balances security with accessibility. It holds firm when closed, yet opens with a single motion, perfect for quick access. Now, to create the main strap, cut a longer, narrow piece of leather. Bevel and burnish all sides, giving it a refined edge that complements the rest of the holster's craftsmanship. Hold it against the pocket front and measure the exact length needed for a comfortable but taut fit over the mushroom stud. Once measured, mark and punch holes at each end, one for stitching and one for the closure point. Then, stitch the anchored end of the strap directly onto the pocket front, keeping your stitches even and tight. At the free end of the strap, punch a single hole large enough to fit snugly over the mushroom closure. Test the fit. It should slide on smoothly, but hold securely once fastened. This simple yet elegant system offers a perfect blend of function and style, adding both character and convenience to your design. With the strap system finished, it's time to form the pocket sides. Cut a long strip of leather that will wrap around the pocket's edge, creating its depth. You can opt for rounded ends for a softer, organic look. Now it's time to assemble the first front panel, the moment when your work starts to transform from loose components into a solid, functional form. Begin by applying leather glue along the inner edges where your pocket will sit. Use a fine applicator or a small brush for precision. A clean, even layer will give the strongest bond. Avoid excess glue. Too much can squeeze out and stain the surface. Let the glue rest for a moment until it becomes slightly tacky. Then carefully position the pocket on the front panel. Press firmly along all glued edges, ensuring perfect alignment with your stitching marks. Once you're confident the pocket is securely in place, move on to stitching. Start at the bottom center of the pocket and work your way evenly up each side, maintaining steady tension with each stitch. This bottom-up approach gives your pocket structural integrity, allowing the weight of the leather to settle naturally as you sew. Double-check that your thread is seated cleanly in the grooves. Neat stitching here gives the holster its professional finish and long-term durability. With the pocket firmly attached, we'll move to the next hardware component, the buckles. These are key to both function and comfort, as they determine how the holster hangs against your body. Cut 2 small strips of leather to act as buckle straps. As always, bevel and burnish their edges for a polished look that complements the rest of the build. Next, punch holes to accommodate the buckle pins and test fit the hardware before sewing. Take care with your measurements here. Proper placement ensures even weight distribution when the holster is worn. Misaligned buckles can cause the piece to twist or sit awkwardly, so take your time and mark carefully before attaching. Once satisfied with the alignment, stitch the buckle straps securely to the ends of the front panel. Reinforce your stitches at stress points for extra strength. These sections will bear tension over time. When done, you should see clean, even lines of thread and perfectly set buckles that move smoothly but hold firmly. Now step back and take a moment to appreciate the transformation. What began as flat, raw leather sheets has become a structured, functional front panel, complete with a fitted pocket, a working strap and closure, and durable buckles ready. For the second front panel, we'll go for a design that's simpler in layout, but still just as functional and refined as the first. This side balances the build, providing usability without overcrowding the overall design. Begin by cutting a clean, rectangular piece of leather for the pocket. Choose a thickness consistent with your first pocket for a uniform feel across both sides. Once cut, apply tokonole or another edge-smoothing compound to the grain side to enhance flexibility and give the surface a soft, polished sheen. Allow it to dry for a moment, then buff gently until smooth to the touch. Next, mark and punch your stitch holes around the pocket's perimeter, keeping your spacing even for neat, professional stitching later. Align the pocket carefully on the main front panel, checking that it sits straight and symmetrical. Once you're satisfied with placement, apply glue along the edges. Press it into position and let it set for a few minutes. Then, stitch it securely around all sides except the top opening. Your second pocket should look clean, balanced, and purposeful, practical without unnecessary embellishment. Now we'll add a magnetic clasp closure, blending modern convenience with classic craftsmanship. Cut a narrow strap of leather long enough to reach over the pocket and close comfortably. As always, bevel and burnish the edges to maintain that polished, cohesive look. Punch a hole at one end of the strap where the magnet will sit. Insert one half of the magnetic clasp into the punched hole, ensuring it's firmly in place. To reinforce this area and protect the magnet from wear, cut a small, rectangular patch of leather and glue it over the magnet on the backside. Stitch this patch down neatly, concealing the hardware entirely so that the magnet is invisible yet fully secure beneath the surface. This subtle detail keeps the design elegant and durable. With the strap finished, attach the second half of the magnetic clasp directly onto the pocket front. Take care to align both halves precisely, so when the strap folds down, it snaps into place cleanly and evenly. Once you're confident in the positioning, sew the strap onto the main front panel, ensuring it pivots smoothly without bunching. Finally, just like on the first side, we'll attach the buckle straps. Cut 2 small strips of leather, bevel and burnish their edges, and punch holes for the buckle pins. Check your measurements carefully. Consistent buckle placement ensures both sides of the holster align perfectly when assembled. Once everything lines up, stitch the straps firmly onto the ends of the second front panel. Reinforce each with tight, even stitching for long-term durability. At this stage, both main front pieces are complete. One detailed and structured with a mushroom closure, the other sleek and magnetic. Together, they form a perfect balance of craftsmanship and practicality, ready to be joined into the full holster assembly. Now it's time to build the shoulder system, the structural core that makes your holster both comfortable and functional. This is where craftsmanship meets ergonomics, as this assembly will determine how naturally the holster conforms to your body and distributes weight across your shoulders. Start by cutting a small rectangle of leather that will serve as the base for the central connector. From there, trim the corners evenly to form an octagon. This geometric shape isn't just for looks. It allows the straps to radiate out evenly in an X formation, maintaining balance and strength in all directions. Once shaped, bevel and burnish the edges so the piece is smooth to the touch and won't chafe against your back during wear. Next, use a precision knife or punch to cut 4 small slots, evenly spaced around the center of the octagon. These slots will hold the straps in place, so ensure they're clean and symmetrical. Each slot should be long enough to accommodate your strap width snugly, but not so wide that it allows play or shifting. To prevent future stress tears, punch a small round hole at each end of every slot. This relieves tension and keeps the leather from splitting over time. With your connector prepared, move on to the shoulder straps. Cut 4 long, even strips of leather, ideally from the same hide to maintain consistency in color and grain. These straps will form the harness that crosses your back and supports both holster panels. Bevel and burnish the edges thoroughly. These pieces will rest against your shoulders, so comfort and smoothness are key. For an added aesthetic touch, you can taper the strap ends into triangular or rounded tips, depending on your design preference. Once shaped, mark and punch holes at both ends to accommodate the buckle pins and attachments. Consistent hole spacing will ensure everything lines up evenly when the straps are connected to the front panels later. Now, thread each strap through the corresponding slot in the octagon, positioning them so they radiate outward in a perfect X pattern. Adjust them until the alignment feels balanced. This cross formation is what gives the holster its signature fit and even weight distribution. Once you're satisfied with the placement, secure each strap with rivets. Place a rivet through the octagon where each strap passes through, anchoring them firmly. These rivets serve At this stage, you've reached the most rewarding part of the process, final assembly. All your components are prepared. The 2 main front panels with their pockets and closures, the back panels complete with zippers, and the fully formed shoulder strap system. Now everything comes together to form one cohesive, functional masterpiece. Start by applying a thin, even layer of glue along the edges where the panels will join. Take your time with alignment. Precision here determines the final shape and comfort of the holster. Press the panels together carefully, making sure every seam meets cleanly with no gaps or overlapping edges. Once the glue has set slightly, move on to stitching. Using the saddle stitch method, sew along all joined edges. This classic hand stitching technique creates a durable, symmetrical line of thread that resists wear and holds up beautifully over years of use. Keep your tension even and make sure the stitches sit neatly in their grooves. This step not only reinforces the structure, but also gives your holster that distinctive, handcrafted character that machines can't replicate. After stitching, attach the buckles from both sides of the holster to the corresponding shoulder straps. Adjust the fit so that the holster sits comfortably across your body. Snug enough to stay in place, but flexible enough to move naturally with you. Take a few moments to wear it. Test the motion, and make minor adjustments until it feels perfectly balanced. Now for the finishing touch. Inspect every edge and surface. If any areas feel slightly rough or uneven, apply a final coat of tokonole or your preferred edge finisher and burnish them once more. Work methodically around the entire piece until every contour feels smooth and every seam gleams with that professional, polished look. And there it is, your handmade leather shoulder holster, complete and ready for years of service. Strong, stylish, and built with care, it's more than just a functional accessory. It's a reflection of your craftsmanship, patience, and dedication. You've shaped raw leather into something timeless, something that carries your effort and skill in every stitch. If you've enjoyed